Most people think to stand out in this business, you need to be the first one on top of the story, or the person with the loudest voice, or the biggest ratings. In truth, to stand out in the news business, you just need to ask the right questions and demand the right answers.
Welcome back to INN's Tweetline Plus. Yeah, we're returning to functionality again here at INN. It's been a while, but as I said, we take opinions, we take views into consideration, then we go back and revamp things and try to do a better job the next time. In other words, we are always looking to improve, we're looking to provide something better than what we had before. So when we were told that by a number of people that the headlines and beyond were too long and too complex, I sat down, revamped INN. I tried out this thing. I tried out a segment called Tweetlines, and this is where Tweetline Plus comes from. Tweetline was an initial project using Twitter's tweet system. So I find an article I found an article I found interesting. I'd do a 15 to 30 second spiel and tweet it out. But the thing is, that wasn't in depth enough. There are issues here that need to be dealt with that you cannot just simply do a 30-second soundbite on. 30-second soundbite, yeah, initially good, but you needed to develop it further. And so what I realized is that I need to bring people into the research. I need to bring them into the work that's going on here. And that's not always an easy thing to do because it's complex and it's very long. So I found an easy way to do it. Tweetline Plus is not going to be 30 seconds, but it's also not going to be a half hour, 45 minutes. It's only going to be a 10, 15-minute splurb that brings you into the understanding of geopolitics. And in this case here, I'm looking at geopolitics from the perspective of an observational psychologist. I'm going into a lot of the detail of why things are being said, why things are being done the way they're being done. And this takes you in a direction that most media outlets, most news outlets don't. And so as I was doing the research for this, I started working with RT because everyone was freaking out about RT, which is Russia Today. And what did I find on RT? I found Larry King there. And Larry King is in the opening graphics. This is why I'm mentioning him. Now we're talking about opening graphics in the show. And there's not going to be a lot of flyby graphics. There's not going to be a lot of very complex stuff here. Because this is the research notes. The graphics will be purely informational. And there will be graphics in certain episodes. But they're going to be informational. They're not. They're there to provide information. They're not there to create an impression. And this is why we're not here at a desk. We're not, on a sound studio someplace. We're at my research desk. This is where I sit for 10, 12 hours. You can look at the video, the BTS vlogs. That's the behind the scenes vlog, and you'll see. I'm here from 9 o'clock in the evening until noon. I'll be up all night working, following a lead, right? Identifying and checking out various different sources. This is what I do, and I do it from the perspective of quantum physics. I came out from quantum physics. Quantum physics has this understanding within it that knowledge is asymptotic. That you cannot reach total and absolute knowledge. You can only approach it. And you approach it in a way not by grand chunks, but by small chunks. And if you know your mathematics, when you're talking about small chunks, I'm talking about integration. I'm talking about, ultimately, when you go into integration, you're talking about derivatives. And then, of course, the base of all this, limits. This is calculus. And so all of a sudden, we go from journalism into psychology, into quantum mechanics, because you're finding your knowledge, you're finding your information in chunks, and then piecing everything together to allow the pieces as they assemble. This is what tells you what's going on and what's not going on. In other words, you do not make judgments as to what you think you're going to find or what you think you're not going to find. You allow the research, the information to come in and say, okay, this is what I see here. And you have to, when you're viewing a source or you're reading a source, you take your notes, but when you read that source, you want to take your notes with what's called the new eye. You don't want to prejudge what's there, even if it's not your own opinion. And in fact, some of my best information comes because I didn't take that position. Oh, I have a prejudged opinion. This article is wrong, and simply dismiss it. Because it's not necessarily the issue. Well, yeah, they're wrong. It's why they're why they're wrong. How do they come to this decision? How do they come to the conclusion that they're coming to? Is there something more? Is there something more I can find out about that? And in many cases, as you go and search around, you start being able to find this information. And this is the key here. You can see Larry King on RT, and he was on CNN. He's a well-respected talk show person. He started off in radio. He started off in 1957. So this guy's got a huge history. So Larry King is not a small person. And so what happens when Larry King jumped ship from CNN and ended up on RT, it created shockwaves. And in one article that I'll be referencing as a sort of to show you how some of the contradictions can actually pop up, right? And one of the contradictions that pops up is that RT is often viewed as the Moscow news or the Kremlin news agency. Because it's funded by Russia, it's funded by Putin. This is a mouthpiece for Putin. That's all propaganda. There's nothing real about it, right? But then again, you hear the same thing about Fox News. Fox News is not considered to be real news, right? Because it doesn't have the so-called in-depth reporting that CNN, ABC, NBC, and CBS have. All right, so. These are the groups that are considered to be, the mainstream media. Fox is slightly outside of that, and RT and a whole bunch of others are, they're the kooks. They're the ones who, nothing's balanced and fair. They're not objective at all. And that's actually what's been said in the article that says, described by Ron Torosen recently here at the Observer. RT is certainly neither objective or balanced, right? But at least it's legitimate as legitimate a representation of the realities of the United States and of American politics than, for example, Fox. So, in other words, they're comparing RT to Fox now, right? Fox News, right? And so. Oh yeah, this guy's damning. Oh no, the RT is not balanced, because they're trying to figure out why this is written up a little after. This was written a little after RT ended up picking up Larry King, or Larry King ended up being on RT. People's heads picked up and said, he's on RT, right? Because I have Larry King's RT show called Politicking as my front opening theme. There's a single bird or a couple single birds in the morning starting to chirp. There's a little spur from Larry King on what makes news good or what makes news more noticeable, and he talks about the standards. And then at the end, the last segment is a flock of birds. So now we're going from a 1 or 2 person audience all the way up to a large audience, and what makes you big, what makes it noticeable, what makes it newsworthy, right? These are the things here. And this is what we're also talking about in our sort of part 2 of the introduction, when we talk about graphics and opening segments here. We're talking about the RT, the use of Larry King's RT sort of promo in the opening theme to show how with the Twitterverse, the blogosphere, that news has really changed. Social media really has changed the sort of landscape. The thing is, here the pundits are not also, these are the blogosphere and the Twittersphere. They're not of the same mind. And the thing is, you have the left, the right, you have everything in between. And so you have to go through and discern these groups or sources as well. And so we hear this article here. It starts off as very critical of RT. It says it's not balanced, it's not fair, it's basically a propaganda piece for the Kremlin. But then you come and hear this. RT has become a clearinghouse for the opinions of American dissidents, including those on the far left, like Noam Chomsky, the far and if twisted right, like Pat Buchanan, and an increasingly fringe of libertarians like Ron Paul. And the thing is, they have now. This was written before this election cycle. You're also hearing about Bernie Sanders on RT, in a way that you're not seeing it on any other media outlet, right? While opinions like these are often provocative, unpopular, and often a little wacky, RT gives this American audience access to ideas and opinions that were considered beyond the narrow bandwidth in which most debate in media usually occurs. In other words, RT is presenting truly something completely different, because the mainstream media scopes and says, this is what you're going to have because this is what's newsworthy. Anything outside of the mainstream media, that's ABC, NBC, CNN, CBS, they determine what the standard is. If you're not newsworthy, you don't get on the air. Now, this is convenient because if you have a candidate who is threatening to upset the apple cart, you ignore him. And he doesn't get any media time. What's happening here? RT is giving these sort of, we call fringe voices, or so-called fringe voices, a voice. And the thing is, if you watch the shows, you sit down and watch RT, and this is why I picked RT as my starting point for research. It's because it had this view. Okay, these people are biased. Their opinion. So okay, let's go and let's see what their bias is. Let's see what their opinion is. Let's see how they censor things. And I found out they didn't. You watch the shows like Jesse Ventura. Jesse Ventura brought a show over. You have Noam Chomsky being interviewed. You have Pat Buchanan being interviewed. You have Jesse Ventura's son, Tyrell Ventura, has a show on RT. In other words, you have an entire spectrum of people who have shows on RT. Are they shows censored? No, they're not. More often than not, they allow these opinions, even if it's not their own opinion, to go through. So they have a not a single point of view, but they represent the voices that are not. This is the article, as this paragraph says. They represent the voices that are not typically heard in mainstream media. And these voices need to be heard. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them. It just simply means if you're going to do proper research, you have to go and take a look and see what they have to say. And this is the issue here. And what happens, this article initially starts off saying and agreeing that, RT is bad, RT is bad, and it actually concludes like that. But here in the center here, how is allowing multiple different voices on the air, uncensored, how is this biased? Simply because it's not representing or not behaving like mainstream media. This isn't bias if it's not behaving like mainstream. It's an alternative, and this is what RT is. RT advertises itself. RT advertises itself as alternative. Just the way Alex Jones and Glenn Beck had at one point in time, they call themselves their alternative, right? You can go and see the Young Turks. They're alternative. They argue themselves. They are alternative. In other words, you can go out and find a variety of alternative voices on YouTube, on Twitter, in the blogosphere. You can find these multiple voices. But now you have to sit down, once you find these voices, you have to sit down and examine and see what they're saying. And this is what's going to be coming up in part 3, is how do you take some of these ideas, and we just give you an example here from The Observer. How do you take these ideas and then unravel what the truth is? How do you do the research on this? Where do you begin? Where do you start? Where do you go? And this is what we're going to be covering here in Tweetlines Plus. We're going to show you the process. I'm looking at my tablet here because these are my notes. So you're seeing the notes. You're not simply seeing someone in a polished office. You're not seeing the final product. You're seeing the research from start to finish. You're seeing the entire thing. And you can take these tips, these ideas, try them out for yourself. Am I right? Am I wrong? Develop your own opinions. And so this is my entry into this entire endeavor, into geopolitics, into punditry. So anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this. I'll see you for part 3 sometime tomorrow or the day after. All right, take it easy, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Welcome to the library, and I am the librarian.
I am the professor. And professor of what? Professor of physics.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light?
Free speech rules here at Democratic Earth.